was first hour on a Monday, and little Jimmy had a college algebra test first hour. He was up late the night before, trying to study for the test. He woke up an hour late. He was late to school and therefore did not take his test. Today in society, kids are staying up too late, either doing homework or just too tired to fall asleep or not too tired to fall asleep because they're full of energy, therefore making them late to school the next day or they fall asleep in class. Knowing that this happens a lot, and doing it myself a couple of times, I have researched, concluded, and summarized my knowledge about why schools should start later. I believe schools should start later, and there are 3 criteria to why. It should be kids be more aware in class, will they eat healthier, and will they be less drowsy behind the wheel. I feel like you should listen because you'll feel differently about your school schedule when I'm finished. Next slide. My first criteria to school starting later, and whether it'll meet it or not, is kids being more aware in school. They get up every morning and they go to school. Do they think they should? No, they don't. They fight the urge to stay in bed, and they don't go to school. Well, they fight the urge to stay in bed and not go to school. But according to the stir.com, kids are still getting signals from their melatonin telling them that they are still sleepy at 7 a.m. The later the start to the day, that gives it the melatonin the less time, or actually gives it more time to tell them that they need to wake up. Since they're still sleepy at 7 a.m., don't you think that starting at 9 or even 9:30 would be better? More attentive school students means better grades, less kids causing trouble, and more attendance. So yes, pushing back starting times does help kids be more attentive at school. Now that I've explained why starting school has met my first criteria, I'll explain whether it meets my second criteria, and that is eating healthier. The more tired a kid is, the more it's obvious, the more junk food kids eat. Eats more like gummy worms and energy bars and Twixes before he goes to school, so he has energy to stay awake in class. All this junk food has large quantities of fat in it, which, as time has proven, slowly makes them more obese. The Atlantic, a popular newspaper from Washington, D.C., for those who didn't know, stated that if kids didn't get the 8 hours of sleep they need, they're going to eat more of these fatty foods to get more energy. The kids who do get these 8 hours of sleep that they need eat less fatty foods and eat healthier, which boosts energy levels. With the obesity levels on the rise, starting schools later would help eliminate some obesity because kids would be able to get more sleep and therefore making them think, hey, I'm going to eat healthier because I have more energy. If you don't think this would help, just ask yourself this. Is it better to be obese and tired or to not be tired and not be obese? And now that I've explained whether schools starting later have met my first criteria, I'll tell you whether it meets my third criteria of being less drowsy behind the wheel. Alright. According to Smosh.com, a website that does research on how to improve teens' lives, has found that pushing starting times back has actually reduced the amount of car crashes in teens by almost 17%. Those who didn't push back starting times increased their accident rates by 8%. A wise fool can see that pushing starting times back is better for teens. Pushing these start times back allows kids to get more sleep and lose any drowsiness while behind the wheel. Those who are less drowsy will lead to less wrecks, which leads to better attendance and less fighting, or less kids falling asleep in school. Also allows them to be healthier physically, emotionally, and mentally. In this car wreck right here, these were 2 kids in New York heading to school, and the driver fell asleep. They ran into a semi and were both killed. Next slide. So to conclude, I have proven that starting school later has met my 3 criteria, which consist of being more aware in class, eating healthier, and being less drowsy behind the wheel. So as I said earlier, the schools start later, they will be more aware, they will be healthier, and they will drive less tired. There's a time for what works, and there's a time for change. The change for what works now, or for what works, is now. We as students need to push for later start times, and we shall no longer end up like Jimmy. Jimmy ended up failing his test because he was too tired to get out of bed, and that test caused him to fail the class.